You've been taught that life is made of random events, disconnected, meaningless, just things that happen. But what if that's a lie you were trained to believe? What if reality isn't just unfolding in front of you, but speaking directly to you? Carl Jung believed that certain events, coincidences with no logical cause, carry deep personal meaning. Moments that seem random, but feel like they were meant just for you. And the danger? Most people ignore them. They silence their intuition, dismiss the signs, and miss the very guidance their unconscious is trying to give them. In this video, you'll discover the real meaning of synchronicity, not as a mystical fantasy, but as a vital conversation between your inner world and the universe itself. Once you understand how it works, you'll never see coincidence the same way again. You were born with a sense of wonder. You knew things without knowing how. You felt the world speaking through color, symbols, dreams, even silence. But somewhere along the line, that knowing faded. Now, you're told to trust only what you can measure, prove, and repeat. And yet, in quiet moments, something inside you still remembers. Have you ever felt like the world was trying to tell you something, and then silenced that feeling before it could speak? This chapter is not about facts. It's about everything you were trained to unsee. Carl Jung believed that society shapes us by building a mask, the persona, a version of ourselves designed to please, perform, and survive in the world. From an early age, you were rewarded for being reasonable, obedient, and explainable. But the cost of wearing the mask is high. We lose touch with the deeper intelligence within us. That intelligence doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in synchronicity, symbols, and feelings. The moment you were told your dreams didn't matter, or that it's just your imagination, a layer of self was buried. Synchronicities begin to fade when intuition is no longer trusted. But they never truly disappear. They wait in the background until you're willing to look again. So here's the question. What parts of yourself have you traded away just to be accepted? And if you've silenced your intuitive voice for years, how would you even recognize the signs trying to reach you now? What if the moments you've brushed off as meaningless were actually messages, and you were too well trained to notice? You weren't wrong as a child. You were wide open, and the world was speaking. It still is. You just forgot how to listen. The first step isn't learning something new. It's remembering something ancient. And what you remember next may change everything. But first, we need to understand, what is synchronicity really? In the next chapter, we step into the mystery you've felt all along. You've had those moments, a thought followed by a call, a song that plays the exact second you need its message. A stranger says the one sentence that unlocks something you didn't even know was stuck. And yet, every time, your mind tries to explain it away. Just coincidence. But a quiet voice inside whispers, "No, this meant something." You feel torn between two realities, one mechanical and logical, the other mysterious and deeply personal. What if that second world is the real one? Carl Jung gave these moments a name, synchronicity. He defined it as the occurrence of meaningful coincidences that have no direct causal link, but are undeniably significant to the person experiencing them. To Jung, synchronicity wasn't superstition. It was a glimpse into a hidden order beneath the surface of reality, where the inner world and outer events mirror each other in precise, symbolic ways. It's not about logic, it's about meaning. Unlike random chance, synchronicities carry emotional resonance. They activate something deep in the psyche, like dreams waking up in daylight. They are the psyche's language, spoken through the fabric of reality itself. If synchronicities aren't just chance, then who or what is arranging them? Is it the unconscious, the self, the universe itself? And more importantly, if life has been speaking to you this whole time, why haven't you been listening? Not every coincidence is a synchronicity, but every synchronicity is a doorway, one that opens from the inside. The question is not, did this happen for a reason? The question is, what does it ask of me now? But before you can act on a synchronicity, you must recognize it. In the next chapter, we'll uncover how the unconscious mind sets the stage for these moments, and why they feel like they were written just for you. Sometimes it feels like life is staging events with uncanny precision. A person shows up just as you've made a decision, or a phrase repeats in books, dreams, and conversations. It's eerie, personal, too connected to be random. But then your logical mind takes over again. You're just seeing patterns because you want to. Maybe. But what if your mind isn't inventing these patterns? What if it's remembering them? What if your unconscious already knows what's coming and is quietly guiding you toward it? According to Jung, the unconscious is not chaotic or passive. It's structured, intelligent, and deeply symbolic. It's constantly scanning, organizing, and aligning your inner world with the outer one. When you repress desires, ignore dreams, or avoid emotions, the unconscious doesn't forget. It finds other ways to speak. One of its languages is synchronicity. Archetypes, ancient patterns that live in the collective unconscious, shape how we experience the world. They influence not just dreams, but the events, people, and symbols that cross our paths. That's why synchronicities feel alive. They echo stories older than your personal life. Your unconscious doesn't just process reality, it participates in creating it, aligning outer events with inner need. If your unconscious is orchestrating these moments, then how much of your life is truly random? And if synchronicities reflect your deeper self, what happens when you ignore them? More importantly, what patterns are shaping your life without your awareness? Right now, your unconscious is not a storage bin. It's a compass. It speaks through dreams, through symbols, and sometimes through perfectly timed events that appear to come from nowhere. But they don't come from nowhere. They come from you. And the closer you align with your inner truth, the louder that signal becomes. In the next chapter, we'll explore how your conscious mind, through attention and belief, tunes your perception to notice synchronicities in the first place. You buy a new car, and suddenly you see that model everywhere. You decide to have a child, and now pregnant strangers seem to flood your reality. Is the world changing, or are you finally noticing what was already there? We think we see the world as it is, but we don't. We see the world as we're tuned to see it, and that might explain why some people live in a sea of synchronicity, while others see nothing but static. There's a system in your brainstem called the reticular activating system, the RAS. It filters billions of sensory inputs and chooses what enters your conscious awareness. The RAS doesn't work randomly. It works based on what you believe, expect, and emotionally invest in. Jung didn't know the term, but he understood the process. He taught that the psyche shapes perception based on internal need. When your unconscious is aligned with a certain intention, or archetype, it sensitizes your mind to recognize matching symbols in the outer world. That's why synchronicities appear more often when you're emotionally engaged, spiritually open, or seeking meaning. You aren't creating the events. You're finally able to see them. The world hasn't changed. You have. If your mind decides what becomes visible, then what are you missing right now? What messages has life tried to send you that your filters simply blocked? And more importantly, what would happen if you trained your mind to see through a different lens, one that welcomed wonder instead of rejecting it? Reality is full of patterns, but you only notice the ones that match your inner world. Your attention is the dial. Your beliefs are the frequency. What you see is what you've been prepared to receive. In the next chapter, we'll go even deeper, beyond perception, into the quantum world, where reality doesn't just reflect your attention, it bends around it. We're taught that reality is solid, predictable, and objective, like a machine that keeps turning whether we're here or not. But then you read about the observer effect, how simply watching a particle changes its behavior. And you begin to wonder, if observation changes matter at the smallest level, what happens when you observe your own life with intention? What if consciousness doesn't just witness reality? What if it shapes it? In quantum physics, the observer effect suggests that particles exist in multiple states, until observed. The act of observation collapses potential into form. Jung found this deeply meaningful. He believed the psyche and matter are not separate, but interconnected. Two expressions of a single underlying reality. He called this shared field the psychoid realm. It's where inner events, dreams, emotions, intuitions, and outer events, coincidences, symbols, phenomena, align in ways that defy logic, but pulse with meaning. Synchronicity, then, becomes a bridge, a quantum-like moment where psyche and world converge. Not because you made it happen, but because your being and the field responded to each other. Not through cause, but through connection. If your awareness alters reality, what are you unconsciously creating right now? What might change if you became more conscious of what you're expecting, feeling, or ignoring? And if the universe is responding to your state of mind, are you shaping it with fear or with meaning? The universe doesn't just respond to force, it responds to presence. Observation is not passive, it's creative. When you bring full attention to the patterns in your life, they shift. When you bring intention to your choices, reality reshapes. You are not separate from the world you walk through. You are co-creating it, moment by moment. In the next chapter, we'll explore how your intuition, the often dismissed voice within, is actually your internal compass for navigating this mysterious dialogue. You've felt it before, that quiet nudge in your gut, that fleeting knowing that something was right or wrong, long before the facts lined up. But how many times have you ignored it? How often have you overruled that voice with logic, only to regret it later? You weren't being irrational. You were being intuitive, but you were trained to silence it. What if the voice you keep doubting is the only one that truly knows the way? Jung considered intuition one of the four primary ways we experience the world, alongside thinking, feeling, and sensing. But unlike logic, intuition perceives through symbols, possibility, and unconscious connection. It sees where things are going, not just where they've been. Intuition is not guessing. It's remembering forward. But in a culture that glorifies proof, we're taught to distrust what we can't explain. The intuitive function becomes repressed, and with it, we lose our ability to recognize synchronicities. Jung believed that reconnecting with intuition is essential to individuation, the process of becoming whole. It's the compass that points toward the unconscious and brings buried truths to the surface. The more we trust it, the clearer it becomes. And eventually, it leads us to the messages waiting behind each moment of coincidence. So ask yourself, when did you stop listening to that voice inside you? Was it when someone mocked your sensitivity? When school taught you to choose reason over feeling? If your intuition had never been silenced, where might it have led you by now? And what happens if you ignore it again? Your intuition is not broken. It's buried beneath fear, noise, and years of conditioning. But it's still whispering. In the music that moves you, in the dreams that linger, in the patterns that repeat until you finally notice. When you start listening again, synchronicities begin to multiply. Because now, you're in conversation with the deeper layers of life. In the next chapter, we'll explore why synchronicities feel so personal, and how they mirror what's hidden in you. It's hard to explain. That strange electric feeling when something clicks. You weren't looking for it, but there it was. The right book, the random comment, the unexpected encounter that felt like it carried a message meant only for you. It hits in your chest, not your mind. And for a moment, you feel seen. Not by a person, but by the universe itself. Why does it feel so intimate? So orchestrated? Why does it feel like you've been recognized? Jung believed synchronicities strike with such emotional resonance because they emerge from the unconscious, the part of you that holds your deepest fears, longings, and untold stories. When something appears in the outer world that perfectly reflects what's stirring inside, it feels personal because it is. Emotion, in Jungian terms, is not just a feeling. It's psychic energy. What you emotionally charge becomes magnetized in your field of perception. If you're wrestling with heartbreak, transformation, or self-doubt, your psyche begins to draw external symbols that mirror that inner world. And timing matters. Synchronicities often arrive when you're on the edge of change, when your inner state is shifting and the unconscious is ready to become conscious. That's why the moment feels alive, It's not just about the event. It's about you and your readiness to receive it. So here's the mirror. If the universe reflects your unconscious back at you, what has it been showing you lately? What if that coincidence wasn't random, but a message from the parts of you you've ignored? And what if you're the one calling them in, not with your thoughts, but with your emotions, wounds, and silent questions? Synchronicities feel personal because they are psychic reflections. The world is not separate from your inner life. It's echoing it. Every sign is a signal, every alignment a response. But to truly decode them, you must pause and pay attention. What were you feeling just before it happened? What were you silently asking? In the next chapter, we'll explore how to read these signs more clearly, and what to do when symbols, numbers, and moments keep repeating themselves. You see the same number, over and over. A certain animal keeps crossing your path. A song plays 3 times in 2 days, always at the exact moment your thoughts drift toward a decision. At first, you laugh it off. What are the odds? But then, it keeps happening. And deep down, you know, something's trying to get your attention. The question isn't whether the signs are real. The question is, will you slow down long enough to understand what they mean? Jung taught that the unconscious doesn't speak in plain language. It speaks in symbols. Just like in dreams, the psyche uses images, metaphors, and repetition to deliver messages that bypass logic and touch something deeper. When you experience a synchronicity, a repeating number, a strange animal encounter, a perfect piece of timing, it's your unconscious aligning with external reality to deliver a symbolic message. These aren't hallucinations. They're expressions of archetypes, universal patterns that rise up from the collective unconscious. The number 1111, a raven, a closed door that opens just when you decide to say yes. These images hold meaning not because of what they are, but because of what they activate in you. The more emotionally charged the moment, the more likely the sign is personal. But symbols don't scream, they whisper. That's why they require reflection, not reaction. Interpretation begins when you ask, what was I feeling? What question was alive in me? What could this mean symbolically, not just literally? If the world is sending you signs, why are you still rushing past them? Have you been trained to ignore the symbols that were meant to guide you? And what might you miss or misunderstand if you don't pause to listen? You don't need to decode everything instantly, but you do need to pay attention. Patterns are the handwriting of the unconscious, and they repeat until they're read. A sign is not a command, it's an invitation. So next time something aligns, stop. Breathe. Ask what part of you is being reflected. In the next chapter, we'll explore a simple but powerful way to track synchronicities over time, and begin to uncover the personal mythology unfolding beneath your everyday life. You notice something strange. A number, a name, a moment. It feels important, but life moves fast. And by the next day, it's already slipping away. A week later, it happens again. Same sign, different setting. You get a chill. This has to mean something. But you can't quite remember what it connected to before. You were too distracted, too busy, and now a potential message from the unconscious is fading like a forgotten dream. What if the key to unlocking synchronicity is simply writing it down? The descent. The hidden truth. Jung believed the unconscious reveals itself in fragments, pieces scattered across dreams, symbols, and moments of alignment. One way to gather those fragments is through journaling, not as a diary of daily events, but as a sacred archive of symbols and signs. When you document your synchronicities, what happened, how you felt, what question was alive in you, you begin to see patterns that the conscious mind misses. Over time, you discover that certain symbols recur, certain themes follow you, certain archetypes are asking to be seen. Jung called this active imagination, using conscious attention to interact with the unconscious. Through tracking synchronicities, you begin to develop your own symbolic language, one rooted not in theory, but in you. What 1111 means for one person may differ for another, but its power lies in its repetition, in its personal mythic charge. Your journal becomes a map, a mirror, a guide through the invisible terrain of the psyche. The confrontation, the existential question. If you don't track the signs, how will you ever learn their meaning? How much guidance have you already received and forgotten? And what parts of your inner life are trying to tell their story? If only you'd write it down. The unconscious is always speaking, but it speaks softly. Journaling is how you learn to listen more closely. It's how you begin to trace the outlines of your personal myth, one synchronicity at a time. You don't need to interpret everything now. Just document what stirs your soul. Because one day, you'll look back and see the pattern that was always there. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to go even deeper, how to move from observation to co-creation, and begin shaping your life with the signals the universe sends. You've seen the signs, you've felt the patterns, but then what? Do you wait? Do you ask for more confirmation? Or do you act even when there's no proof? This is the moment where most people stop. The message was there, but the leap feels too uncertain. What if it's not real? What if it's all in your head? But here's the truth. Synchronicity doesn't just want your attention, it wants your participation. And that means you must do something radical. You must respond. Carl Jung taught that transformation begins when intention meets unconscious energy. Intention is not just desire. It's the direction you send your attention, your emotion, your will. When you set a clear intention, show me what I need to see, the psyche begins to move. And when your emotions, thoughts, and actions are in alignment, synchronicities become more frequent and more precise. Why? Because the ego is no longer resisting the self. You're in flow, you're on the path. But the final step is what most people avoid: action. Jung emphasized that individuation requires not just insight, but embodiment. When a synchronicity arrives, a phone call, an offer, a sudden opening, and it moves you emotionally, you must act, not blindly, but with trust. Each step you take confirms your cooperation with the deeper rhythm of your life. The more you respond, the more the pattern reveals itself. What have you asked for, but not followed through on? How many signs have you received, only to hesitate and watch them pass? If you believe synchronicities are real, why haven't you let them guide your choices? The universe may whisper, but it doesn't beg. The more you act on what feels meaningful, the more that meaning multiplies. Every intention is a question. Every alignment is an answer. Every action is a declaration. You are not waiting on life. Life is waiting on you. In the next chapter, we'll explore what makes this process even more powerful, the emotional and energetic state you live in, and how it shapes what you receive. You wake up drained, scattered, scrolling. Life feels random, heavy. But then there are days where everything just flows. The right words come, someone smiles, a door opens, and you wonder, what changed? You didn't work harder, you didn't push more, but somehow the world responded differently. Could it be that your inner energy shaped what arrived? Could synchronicity depend not just on what you think, but on how you feel? Jung described emotion as the fuel of transformation, what he called libido, or psychic energy. It's not just about how you feel, but what kind of vibration you carry. Fear, shame, resentment, these constrict the psyche, narrowing your awareness and creating energetic noise. But emotions like awe, gratitude, wonder, and curiosity elevate your psychic frequency, making the unconscious more fluid and responsive. Synchronicities are more likely to emerge when you're energetically open, not closed. That's why they often show up in moments of spiritual awakening, artistic flow, or deep emotional clarity. Your energy doesn't just react to life, it filters it. The more attuned you are to your own inner state, the more the external world becomes a mirror. Practices like meditation, time in nature, creative play, and inner reflection aren't about escaping reality. They're about tuning your instrument so you can hear the subtle music of synchronicity. What kind of energy have you been broadcasting lately? Are you open or defended, aligned or fractured? And if synchronicities are shaped by your emotional field, what might you be pushing away without even knowing it? The universe isn't just listening to your words. It's listening to your state. When you elevate your vibration, you become more magnetic to meaning. Synchronicities arrive not to reward your mood, but to reflect it. You don't have to force the signs. You just have to feel like someone who's ready to receive them. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into this principle of co-creation and explore what it truly means to live in flow with the symbolic intelligence of the cosmos. You try to plan everything, control the timing, the outcome, the people, but somehow, the more you push, the more things fall apart. Then, there are other days, the ones where you follow a hunch, say yes without knowing why, turn left instead of right, and something extraordinary unfolds. Not because you forced it, but because you let it happen. What if flow isn't about effort, but about alignment? What if life already knows the way, and it's been waiting for you to listen? Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming whole, is not something the ego can control. It's a partnership between your conscious choices and the deeper wisdom of the self, the archetype of your total potential. When you try to dominate life with rigid logic or fear, you cut off that connection. But when you release the illusion of control, you create space for the self to guide you through synchronicity, symbols, and intuitive nudges. This is the essence of co-creation. It's not passive. It's deeply participatory, but in a different way. Instead of forcing outcomes, you follow the thread of meaning. You notice what lights you up. You trust the subtle rhythm. Flow arises not when life becomes easy, but when you become present. That's when events align, doors open, and the universe begins to feel intelligent. Not because it suddenly became magical, but because you did. How much of your life have you spent trying to force the river? What would change if you let go of the plan and followed the pattern? And if the universe is co-creating with you, are you even showing up for that conversation? Living in flow doesn't mean giving up responsibility. It means giving up resistance. Synchronicities increase not because you demand them, but because you align with them. The more you honor what feels meaningful, the more meaning multiplies. You're not here to micromanage the mystery. You're here to move with it. In the next chapter, we'll explore how synchronicity becomes even more precise when you use it as real-time feedback, not just inspiration. You've been stuck in indecision. Should you leave the job? Say yes to the move? Trust the connection? Then a sign, a symbol, a synchronicity. It seems to answer the question you didn't say out loud, but a part of you resists. Am I just projecting meaning onto nothing? Yet deep inside, it resonates. A flicker of knowing that says, pay attention. What if synchronicities aren't just affirmations, but guidance? What if they're life's way of nudging you, or warning you in real time? Jung saw synchronicities as more than mystical events. He saw them as feedback loops between the ego and the unconscious. When you're in alignment, synchronicities often confirm it. They say, yes, keep going. But when you're veering off path, they can become interruptions, strange detours, emotional friction, inner resistance mirrored in outer blocks. The psyche speaks through patterns, and synchronicity is one of its most immediate voices. Like dreams, these moments reveal what your conscious mind has missed or ignored. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Listening to synchronicities is how we interrupt that fate, but it takes courage. Because when the signs ask us to act, to change, to leave, to begin, they ask us to trust the invisible. That's not easy, but it is necessary. How many signs have you seen and ignored? How many times has life whispered, not this way, and you kept walking? If the unconscious is offering you real-time guidance, are you willing to let it redirect you? Synchronicities are not just pretty moments. They are instructions, cloaked in coincidence. They are messages in the language of emotion and meaning. You don't have to decode them perfectly. You just have to respond. Because the longer you wait, the louder the signs must become. And what begins as a whisper may one day become a storm. In the next chapter, we'll look at what happens when you ignore the signs, and how disbelief and distraction can blind you to the messages you were meant to receive. You saw something, you felt it, that moment that made your heart skip, like a puzzle piece falling into place. But then you brushed it off. Just coincidence. I'm reading too much into it. I need to be realistic. And in that moment, something closed. A door, barely opened, was gently shut again. The sign didn't disappear. You turned away from it. The truth is, most people don't miss synchronicities because they aren't there. They miss them because they've been trained not to see. Jung understood this danger. He saw how modern life, with its obsession with logic, speed, and external validation, cuts us off from the symbolic world. He believed that when we deny the unconscious, it doesn't go away. It goes underground. And when synchronicities arise, subtle messages from that deeper layer, they're often silenced by disbelief or lost in distraction. The rational ego fears what it can't control. It would rather ignore the mysterious than surrender to it. But the cost is high. When you block these messages, you become disconnected from your inner life. Your sense of meaning fades. You feel adrift, guided by nothing but numbers and deadlines. Jung saw this as a kind of spiritual starvation, a life stripped of depth. And in that silence, neurosis grows. Suffering isn't always caused by trauma. Sometimes it's caused by the absence of meaning. What if the signs never stopped, but you stopped listening? What parts of you are too defended, too distracted, too cynical to receive what the unconscious is trying to say? And if you keep ignoring the whispers, what louder lessons might life be forced to send? Disbelief is not protection. It's blindness. Distraction is not peace. It's avoidance. Synchronicities don't need to be proven. They need to be witnessed. The more you open, the more you see. And the more you see, the more alive the world becomes. In the final chapter, we'll explore what it truly means to live with open eyes and how to walk the path of symbolic awareness, one meaningful step at a time. You scroll, you rush, you plan. You forget. Most days, you're surviving. But every so often, something breaks the pattern. A sign, a moment, a message wrapped in coincidence. It jolts you, wakes you. And for a few seconds, you remember that life might be more than just a schedule. Then the moment fades, and the noise returns. But what if you didn't let it fade next time? What if you lived as if that moment was the real one, and everything else was just the distraction? Jung believed that to live fully is to live symbolically, to walk through the world not just as a thinker, but as a participant in mystery. Synchronicities are not rare events. They are part of a deeper reality that becomes visible when you pay attention. When you live with open eyes, you begin to see the world as alive, not random, but responsive. Your outer life reflects your inner life. Your dreams speak through the world around you, and everything becomes a conversation. The music that moves you, the stranger who says the right words, the coincidence that makes you cry. These are not distractions. They are invitations. A symbolic life is not about superstition. It's about relationship between the ego and the self, between the conscious and unconscious, between you and the story you're here to live. Synchronicity is the moment that reminds you you're not alone in that story. Are you willing to live as if the universe is alive and listening? Can you walk through each day like it's trying to speak to you? And what might happen if you actually answered back? The symbolic life doesn't give you control. It gives you connection. It doesn't promise clarity. It offers meaning. And meaning is enough. One synchronicity at a time, you walk the path between worlds, between what is and what's calling you forward. The signs will keep coming. The only question is, will you see them? Elena wandered through the misty forest, where every shadow seemed to whisper secrets of the past. She paused by an ancient oak, the air thick with anticipation, feeling as if unseen eyes were watching her. Suddenly, a raven cawed loudly, its wings casting surreal patterns against the moonlight. The ground beneath her feet seemed to pulse with an energy that connected her to something larger than herself. A gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers, lulling her into a dreamlike state. She closed her eyes, feeling the universe align with her heartbeat as stars began to shimmer in the velvet night sky. With every breath, she felt a growing awareness of unseen pathways opening before her. She saw visions of her past, present, and future weaving together in a tapestry of light and shadow. A luminous figure emerged from the darkness, offering her a guiding hand toward an unknown destiny. Reflection. Question. What signs have you been ignoring? And what might happen if you finally listened? Call to action. CTA. If this opens something in you, comment below with a synchronicity you've experienced. Your story might be the sign someone else needs.